The Book of Judges serves as a cautionary tale, showing the consequences when a nation drifts away from its moral and spiritual foundation. The repeated cycle of Israel's rebellion, oppression, repentance, and deliverance paints a vivid picture of a people struggling with faithfulness. From Othniel to Samson, the judges each brought temporary relief to Israel, but the people's commitment to God was often short-lived. Without steady leadership, Israel repeatedly fell into sin, blending in with the cultures around them and embracing the practices of idol worship that God had warned against. The Book of Judges also highlights God's enduring patience and mercy. Despite Israel's repeated failures, God continued to respond when they cried out for help, raising judges to deliver them from their enemies. Each judge's story reflects both human limitations and God's sovereignty. Some judges, like Deborah, brought unity and wisdom, while others, like Samson, struggled with personal weaknesses. These judges were imperfect, yet God used each of them to fulfill His purposes, showing that God can work through anyone, even those with significant flaws. One of the main lessons from Judges is the danger of compromise. Israel's troubles began when they allowed Canaanite influences to creep into their lives. Instead of driving out the nations as God commanded, they settled among them, adopting their religious practices and customs. This led to a gradual erosion of their faith and identity. The phrase, "everyone did what was right in his own eyes," repeated at key moments, reflects the moral confusion that resulted from abandoning God's ways. The final chapters of Judges are especially dark, describing a society in moral chaos. The shocking events involving the tribe of Benjamin and the civil war that follows illustrate how deeply Israel had fallen. Without strong spiritual leadership and adherence to God's laws, Israel was left in disarray, engaging in violence, revenge, and injustice. The final verse, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes," sums up the state of the nation. This closing line points to the need for a godly king who would guide the people back to a stable relationship with God, preparing the way for the rise of kings like Saul and David in the books of Samuel. Applications. The perils of drifting from God. Israel's repeated cycle of rebellion and oppression highlights how quickly we can drift into harmful patterns when we distance ourselves from God. This serves as a reminder to maintain a consistent relationship with God, prioritizing His guidance to keep us from being swayed by influences that pull us away from His path. The consequences of compromise. Israel's troubles began with seemingly small compromises, allowing Canaanite influences and idol worship to seep into their lives. This reminds us that compromising our values, even in small ways, can gradually erode our faith and identity. Staying committed to our beliefs helps us avoid moral confusion and remain faithful to God's principles. God's patience and willingness to forgive. Despite Israel's repeated failures, God continued to deliver them when they cried out. This demonstrates God's incredible patience and mercy, reminding us that no matter how many times we stumble, He is willing to forgive and restore us when we turn to Him in repentance. The need for strong spiritual leadership. The phrase, "everyone did what was right in his own eyes," reflects the moral chaos that arises without strong, godly leadership. This shows the importance of having spiritual leaders who uphold and promote God's standards, guiding others toward stability and faithfulness. Strong leadership provides a foundation for spiritual unity and purpose in any community. God can work through our imperfections. The judges, despite their personal weaknesses and flaws, were still used by God to achieve His purposes. This teaches us that God can work through anyone willing to serve, regardless of imperfections. Trusting in God's power, rather than relying on our own, allows us to make a positive impact, even when we feel inadequate.